Hey guys, in this video we're going to review the Focusrite Scarlett 18i20 audio interface. This is a mid-level rack mount audio interface that has a lot of features and connectivity. We'll talk about everything this audio interface is capable of, how to use it, and what's included. If you're interested in getting one of these units, I've left links in the video description down below. Let's start with what this audio interface includes. The front of the audio interface has two combined XLR 1/4-inch inputs that can also act as a direct box for an instrument input. The Focusrite Scarlett 18i20 can record at up to 192 kHz, but it can't use all the inputs at once when it's doing this. The next two buttons give us phantom power for all the inputs, separated in 1 to 4 and 5 to 8. Then we have the preamp levels with an instrument button, and pad for the first two inputs. The next 6 inputs just have preamp levels. To the right, we have a level indicator that shows us the input level after the microphone is amplified. We can use this to make sure we're getting a loud enough level without clipping. After that is the monitor output with a dim switch and mute mode. The dim switch will reduce the audio output by 18 decibels. Then we have 2 headphone outputs and a power switch. Most of the connections we'll use on the 18i20 are found on the back of the unit. Starting on the left, we have our power connector. Then there's the SB-diff connectors that can be used to attach a stereo digital effects processor. We'll cover that again a little later. Next are MIDI inputs and outputs to attach a MIDI device. These can be required depending on the type of MIDI device you use, but many MIDI controllers are now made to be USB compatible. The next connector is for a USB connection to the computer. Then we have the clock connection to sync to other devices. The optical inputs and outputs give us 8 additional inputs and outputs to use with a second rack processor, such as the Focusrite Octopre or the Behringer unit like I have below. The 2 outputs in white are the monitor outputs for our monitor speakers, or in this case, I have them routed to a headphone amplifier first, which can then be sent to a set of monitor speakers. The line output allows us to connect to an analog effects processor. The rest of the inputs are for microphones or line inputs. Unfortunately, they're all on the back of the unit, which can make accessing them difficult if the audio interface is set up in a rack. To fix that, I've purchased an ART P16 XLR patch bay to pass all the inputs through to the front of my rack. Then I made a few custom-sized XLR cables with bulk wire and Nutrix connectors to connect it all. So let's cover why I chose this audio interface. My previous audio interface was a Focusrite Scarlett 18i6 first generation. When I upgraded, I wanted to make sure whatever I chose was rack mountable to keep all my equipment contained and wired up in a clean way. Another thing I considered was the number of inputs. I wanted at least 8 microphone inputs, but the option of expanding to more was a nice bonus since I already owned the Behringer ADA 8000. The one thing to keep in mind is a lot of audio interfaces will have additional line inputs, but they require external preamps, so by the time you buy preamps and the interface, it's actually cheaper to go with a bigger interface like this. This interface is also great because it allows me to loop through external effects processors, and I might experiment with that a little more in the future. I've also been really impressed with my audio interface before, since Focusrite does make really clean sounding audio interfaces with good quality built-in preamps. Before you go ahead and try to use this audio interface, you'll need to install the drivers. They are available on Focusrite's website when you register your product. Just make sure to get your serial number off of the bottom of the unit before you go mounting it in a rack, because you'll need that to register it. Now let's cover how to use Focusrite Control. Focusrite Control is a configuration software that lets us adjust the settings and signal routing with the Focusrite Scarlett 18i20. This is part of the software package that you need to install to get the audio interface working. If we start in device settings, we can see what audio interface we're using, the firmware version, sample rate, clock source, and monitor controls, which determines which outputs are controlled by the monitor level knob on the front of our audio interface. Our default has us set to output 1, 2. Next, we'll move on to the output routing section to cover how we can set up our different hardware outputs. If we start at the top, we can see our monitor outputs. Clicking on this brings up the mixing controls so we can adjust what signals are passing to that output. The first thing we should note is that the monitor outputs are set up as custom mix. This means that we can add or remove hardware and software outputs to the monitors. If we want this simplified, we can have it set to either a playback output or direct routing out of a hardware input. Either way, with custom mix, we can do all of these things anyway, but we only have one custom mix, so everything set to custom mix monitors the same inputs and playbacks. The top of our mix shows the hardware inputs. These are inputs to our audio interface that are directly routed to the output, so there's no latency. We can add new hardware inputs with the plus button to the right of the inputs. For each input, we can adjust the panning, level, mute, and solo. If we double click the pan or level, it will reset to 0. Down below, we can change our playback outputs. The default for our software will be playback 1-2, unless we tell it to use another playback in our software. Along the left side, we can do this with all our outputs, including the headphones, SPDIF, and ADAT outputs. The last thing I want to cover with the Focusrite Scarlett 18i20 is how to loop through an effects processor. The process is the same whether we use SPDIF or line outputs and inputs, so I'll be connecting through the line inputs and outputs for this example. To get started, connect a pair of outputs from the audio interface to the line inputs of an effects processor. Then connect the line outputs on the effects processor to a pair of line inputs on the Focusrite Scarlett 18i20. For this example, I'm using my 11 rack as the external effects processor. Normally I just connect it as a USB interface to do this, but this will work to test in this video. We'll start up our digital audio workstation and add a hardware output to a clean DI guitar track. Then we set our 11 rack to respond to a line input as the input signal. To listen back in real time, we can set up RealTime Monitoring for our monitor or headphone mix in Focusrite Control to play the signal on inputs 3-4, then adjust the level from the Focusrite Control. To get this into our DAW, we would create a stereo track and set it to record the stereo 3-4 input. We can also play it back through our DAW and use input monitoring, but this adds a little bit of latency. We don't end up hearing the latency when we capture the track though. One thing we should note here is that the line outputs 7, 8, and 9, 10 are linked to the headphone outputs 1 and 2. This means that they default to also having playback 1-2 sent to them. If we're trying to use an effects processor on these output pairs, we would have to disable the outputs to the headphones as well to only get the output we want. This is done by changing the output from custom mix to playback 7, 8, and 9, 10. That's fine for me since I can connect headphones through my headphone amplifier on the monitor outputs, but it provides less options for different headphone mixes. The Focusrite Scarlett 18i20 also comes bundled with included software and plugins. You'll get the Focusrite Red plugin suite, Softtube Time and Tone bundle, and Addictive Keys Piano, Loopmaster Samples, Pro Tools First, which is free anyways, and Ableton Live Lite. All this software is available for download, and the instructions are written on the inside of the box along with the code to redeem the bundled software. Thanks for checking out this review on the Focusrite Scarlett 18i20. If you're interested in getting one for yourself, we've left links to the product in the video description down below. You can also like the video, subscribe to the channel, press the bell icon to get notifications whenever our new videos are released, and check out our social media links to keep up to date on all our new content.